Pink Floyd are often associated with being a drug band, although considering how commercially successful they are, how many people I've met who love or like Pink Floyd a lot, and the amount of people who actually go out of their way to use recreational drugs or drugs other than alcohol and caffeine anyway, not it isn't a majority of Pink Floyd fans who are drug users, as opposed to, 808 State or something. Yet nevertheless, the drug association with Pink Floyd persists to this day. Now, why is that? Well, as far as I can tell, the conclusion I've simply come to is that there is that stereotype associated with Pink Floyd's music being so enjoyable when you're on drugs, or presumably if you've smoked cannabis or you've taken LSD or some other psychedelic compound, Pink Floyd's music is going to be more enjoyable to you than the average, I don't know, Frank Sinatra or Metallica or Mozart. I don't know. This is just presumed to be the case. Why? Why is Pink Floyd more appealing to one of those altered states? I would argue that if Pink Floyd's more appealing to you in those altered states than those other artists, I'm willing to bet you probably enjoy Pink Floyd more than those other artists. Who did I say? Metallica, Mozart, and Frank Sinatra? It's just some random generic popular acts out there. Mozart's still alive and filling arenas, obviously, and Frank, for that matter, Jesus. But you know what I'm saying. It's just like I'm willing to bet that the person who is willing to take the drugs is probably the kind of personality who likes Pink Floyd the most out of those four acts. Someone who likes Metallica wants to drink booze, and someone who likes Frank Sinatra wants to get the champagne out. Someone who likes Mozart might whip the tea out. What radical is that? Essentially, I think the qualities about Pink Floyd's music that make them so interesting to someone on drugs in an altered state, it's the same appeal as when you're sober. I suppose it's that when someone who does take drugs is listening to Pink Floyd, they want to be in an even more relaxed state to appreciate it as much as possible, because they feel as though there's something going on here which their kind of sober analytic mind is not in a sufficient enough place to appreciate, and so the toke of the bong will allow this to take place even more so. Excuse me, that's a morning alarm. I'm just up a bit earlier than normal. Drank too much orange juice, had to take a wee. Yeah. So the point is, it's rather than we're talking about Ummagumma specifically, and then we were talking about drug references because Ummagumma's the one where you need to be on drugs to appreciate Ummagumma, and it's like, okay, look, I don't hate that statement. I think Ummagumma's brilliant. I think you can enjoy that album sober. I've listened to that album when I was on my job. I was definitely sober there. I enjoyed the album immensely. Now, and I may or may not have listened to it when I wasn't sober before either, and I was just like paralyzed and just thinking. Anyway, the point I'm making is that so why Ummagumma? Why do Pink Floyd fans that have this kind of polarized reaction to Ummagumma, especially the casual fans who get into it via The Wall or Dark Side of the Moon or Wish You Were Here? Why is or the people who love the Sid Barrett era might even turn their nose up at Ummagumma, because it's almost the complete opposite. It's almost the other side of psychedelic songwriting at that time. The psych, the freak out jams, and the kind of crazy, non-second guessing, kind of instrumental indulgence, rather than the kind of pop ditties downstream of Ray Davies or something with Sid Barrett and the first album. Anyway, Ummagumma's just, the side A is more liked by the fans. It's the live side. It's a long psych jam of Astronomy Domine. Then there's the brilliant, listen to this at work. Everyone kind of looks at me once, because I'm playing, there's people around, no headphones, and careful with that axe, Eugene. Well, Eugene wasn't being careful enough with the axe, and so he started getting the Sorry. I'm trying to wake up. So 99.95 in the other room. You get that, and then people start like, what the fuck kind of music are you listening to? And I guess, like, that's kind of the problem that most people fans have. It's like, oh, I want to be considered a Pink Floyd fan, but I want to be considered, like, cool and hip, not like, weird. And it's just like, well, you're asking for too much, my friend. You know, yeah, careful with that axe, Eugene. Oh my fucking god. What, we're gonna call the album with Careful with That Axe, Eugene, the black sheep of the Pink Floyd discography? Like, what, are you fucking... You can't be a square and also be a Pink Floyd fan. Like, figure that one the fuck out. Then there's versions of A Saucerful of... Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, and then A Saucerful of Secrets. Those are fucking phenomenal. Like, those are arguably even better than... Maybe not better than the studio versions on A Saucerful of Secrets, the album, because of the production on that album. Norman Smith, the genius, the protege of George Martin, who was actually not... Norman Smith was not on board with Saucerful of Secrets. He's got a credit on Ummagumma as well. Apparently, according to Waters, I think, Smith was not on board with the psych jams after... He was more on board with the Syd Barrett era. I know management sided with Syd Barrett when he left the group, and even though he was destitute and just not in a good place, unfortunately. The Syd Barrett thing breaks my heart to this day, because that was a man who... He wrote those gorgeous lyrics and songs for the Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and then he just... I think Syd was one of those personalities who, the moment there was like some pressure on him to do it, he shut down. I've known people like that. The moment that there was pressure on them to do well in like a school or in their art, they really shut down and started to enjoy it a lot less. And I hate this. I think this was Syd to some extent. I think Syd was feeling happy and that he could do whatever he wanted. I mean, the moment there was a kind of, no, the party's over, you've got to do this and this and this now. But record executives, management, other band members, you've got to commit to this schedule now. I think it broke him. He was really young. I think Barrett probably had schizophrenia, let's be real, and the onset of schizophrenia tends to be 22. You know, it could have come across as just harmless idiosyncrasies until it really was started to manifest, unfortunately. Christ almighty. But nevertheless, Smith was on board with them, Saucerful of Secrets, and Barrett was leaving. Barrett only contributes the last, like, 2 tracks. I think, maybe even just Jug Band Blues on Saucerful of Secrets. So he's not on Ummagumma. You got this gorgeous live album on side A, disc 1. And disc 2 is a more contentious disc. We have the... Let me just read it. I want to just make sure I remember who does what on here. I know Nick Mason's the Grand Vizier's Garden Party, and I believe Gilmour is The Narrow Way. Roger Waters is certainly the best thing on side B, and some people claim the best Pink Floyd song ever. Why not? Is several small species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a Pict. It's ridiculous. I just happen to be on Wright Music taking the track list. He goes, oh, Pink Floyd, Ummagumma, 7.0. It's just like, you're such a square. And it's not even written in English. I was going to like tear it apart, but like I can't understand Spanish, what appears to be. Oh boy. But yeah, Richard Wright, Sysyphus, Roger Waters, Grantchester, Meadows, and then several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a Pict. David Gilmour's The Narrow Way, and Nick Mason's The Grand Vizier's Garden Party. Some people go, this meanders too much, it's not focused. Oh, doesn't this piss people off when an album isn't focused? I mean, a lot of critics realize that, like, an album doesn't have to be, like... You don't go into an album going, right, this needs to be flawless. What got you into albums? Sgt. Pepper's, Dark Side of the Moon, College Dropout? Like, did these albums appeal to you because they were flawless? And you were analysing them with a fine-tooth comb going, alright, yep, no flaws here, this isn't bland, yep, I'm euphoric at every moment, definitely. Yeah, how can you be euphoric at every moment when you're trying to analyse every moment? You know? I think that you just got to accept the album for what it is. Stop being pedantic and going, about what it's not. Hey, I mentioned the College Dropout just before. The Life of Pablo. We all listened, music critics listened to that and they felt, you know what? So much of what this is genius. But we just have to accept this as a masterpiece, even though it's obviously a mess and unfocused. And we can talk all day about the album that The Life of Pablo isn't. You know, Jesus, for example. But we could spend even more days, weeks, and years talking about what the life of Pablo is. You dig? And that's how I feel about Ummagumma. You just have to accept it for what it is. And a lot of music critics were just like, you know what, fuck it, yeah. The life of Pablo is clearly genius. We're not going to criticize it for not being focused or whatever. You got to rate your music, and there's plenty of people who do feel that way. Because, you know, with an album, you do take a leap of faith. You do decide that the sequencing is genius and that, like, that it couldn't have been better any other way. You just decide that. We just decided that there was no better track to put on the second, right after 24th Century Schizoid Man. We decided, just for no other reason than it's how history played out, that there's no better song to put after in the 24th Century Schizoid Man than I Talk to the Wind. We wouldn't change that album for anything. I Talk to the Wind is not a great song by any means. Come on, it's good. It's fine. I like it. Okay, but it wouldn't change it for anything on that album. When a track on an album becomes a suite in a piece, it's elevated by its presence on the album. Even though if you listen to it as an individual track. So to some degree, we do decide that albums are brilliant. The recording artist decides to take a chance with us, and that we're going to accept that. Look, to some degree with a novel, we just accept that all these sentences together form a coherent storyline and have all these themes and attitudes about the world and society. We just accept that about a novel. Because theoretically, we could take sentences of a novel out and the whole thing fucking falls apart. So if these things are flimsy and like kind of, you know, built on with glue and toothpicks, really, like, and we just decide that things are good. I mean, why not? Why not decide that Ummagumma is good? Why have we just dismissed it as like, oh, it's the drug album, or it's the Black Sheep, it's too long, it's unfocused. You need to identify rules that it's a great album, so you stupid high school level analysis of a text. Listen. Alright? Just like set time aside. Just chill out. Like, I know a lot of people trying to get into music now, like, you know, older Pink Floyd fans struggling to get into, music collectors struggling to get into Ummagumma. You've got a spouse and or kids now. I get it. Like, it's not the, where do you find time to listen to a double album? And most people are not going to be on board with listening to Ummagumma. Maybe it would be for a little while, but for that amount of time, yeah, probably not. A car trip with Ummagumma, most people are probably not going to be on board with that. Just hanging around the house listening to Ummagumma, your spouse and kids may or may not be on board with that. I get it. As opposed to a Dark Side of the Moon, or even, yeah, Animals. Animals goes like 40 minutes, you know what I mean? Like, you can deal with this. Ummagumma is just like, I don't want to have to form an opinion on this. I get it. I get that life is what it is, but if, perchance, you ever happen to score some bud whilst you're, you know, working your 9 to 5, and, you know, your kids have decided that they're going to be distracted with some movie with Netflix in the evening, and you and your spouse are just chilling, and you're like, hey spouse, I got some cannabis from my coworker. Do you just want to chill out? And do you mind if I just put on some Pink Floyd in the background? And, you know, they're like, oh yeah, Pink Floyd, cannabis, yeah, sounds fair enough. Just put on Ummagumma and just like comfort them when the screaming and careful with that action Eugene comes on. You'll be fine. It's a brilliant album. Like, do you need drugs for it? Oh god, this is a good question. That's what we're trying to answer here. I was trying to argue it's a good album, but most of the arguments said it's a good album. A lot of the arguments said it's a bad album, or that you need drugs for the album to be enjoyable. It's more that you need to be in a place of absolute relaxation and euphoria in order to have the patience for this album. Because we as a society are very impatient. I'm willing to bet you've never sat down with like a classical music disc either. Somehow. I'm willing to bet the average Pink Floyd fan who's kind of, you know, grown up to be a, you know, former hippie, now hypocrite. You love Roger Waters, but you hate his politics, you know, where Israel is concerned, or Brazil. The Ukraine thing's a bit more contentious. I don't know how to feel about Roger's opinions there. Like, I'm not even gonna fucking touch that, actually. Fuck it. Most of us just want the album to be over so we can form an opinion of it already. Do you ever remember what it was like when you were hoping the album would never end? When you were just sitting there enjoying the music? What happened to that? Listen to Ummagumma. Try and find that again. If you have to take drugs, so be it. If you don't, well, you'll learn a lot more about yourself, I'm sure. Playing this back, I just want to clarify something. It's no mystery to me why the average person doesn't enjoy Ummagumma. Fair enough. Like, it's Ummagumma. You know? Careful of that axe, Eugene. Like, of course. But Pink Floyd fans turning their nose up at Ummagumma? You're such squares.